2025 Facilities Committee to order at 6:33. Roll call, please.
David Pombo.
Here.
Colin Clements.
Here.
Jimmy Legrand.
Here.
Thorson Harrison.
Here.
Carolyn Davila.
Absent.
Lisa Boulay.
Here.
Thank you. Now that I have my microphone on, the entire audience can hear me. Receiving a public comment. I see no cards, so we will move on to facilities use update. Facility minutes from the meeting of September 27th. Finance report, facility usage report, denied applications, and reimbursements. Kind of ran through the list fast, didn't I?
Yeah, that's great.
Is there any staff report on any of the
Certainly.
reports we're looking at?
Certainly. The first item is our minutes from a previous meeting. The second item is the current status or balance from our facilities use is $184,329.12. Our hourly usage follows with Altamont, Bethany, Lammersville. The same holds true. The multipurpose room is used most frequently at all of the sites, with the exception of the high school, where it's the learning commons classrooms, followed by the stadium and the large gym. Just a side note, the Bethany question that came up at the last facilities meeting, you can see now that we fixed it. They're now entering their facilities information correctly.
Or at least uniformly with the rest of the
Yes.
entries?
Or the same way as everybody else, yes. And then we have the list of the denied or rejected applications. In all cases where we could move a group, we moved the group. And then we have two groups that received refunds in this since our last meeting. I believe that is all of the items for that item.
For the Wickland facility use chart, it has, instead of the room-by-room chart, it has the organization that rented the room or that requested the room or used the room.
Oh, yeah, the type of, yes. It's organized a little differently.
So will we get, is that how it's going to be from now on? So we won't know, like, which area is used more?
No, I think we can do it both ways. This bar chart is a little different than the other bar chart. I think it still holds the same information. It's just charted a little differently because the color coding reflects the room use, right? And then the numeric value is within the color coding.
Okay.
So I think that one got captured a little differently than the others. I'm not sure why. Yeah, it's a vertical chart instead of a horizontal
Yeah.
chart.
Oh, got it.
They
Okay.
Flip the axes.
It got
that's
flipped.
Got
The
it.
axis got
Okay.
flipped. Sorry, it took me a minute to figure that out.
That's fine.
all. By the way, I discovered in my report that I did for the owners of my company that you can click one button in Excel now and it flips it and it doesn't even tell you. It just automatically. So if you click the wrong button, it goes bloop.
Maybe that's what happened.
I did that because I had one the wrong way in my presentation. Fortunately, I caught it before. I do have a question on the list of denied, rejected applications.
Okay.
And that is that I kind of expected to see the denied application for Hanson on this list.
Was there ever an application?
Oh, it wasn't it didn't make it to the application
Never even
process.
put an application.
Okay, all right. That's why it's not on there.
Further questions or comments on the reports we just went over?
None from me.
All right, moving on to information and discussion items. LUSD energy audit. Jimmy,
Good evening.
good evening.
So this is a report I did for the board 2 meetings ago, I believe. As part of our Prop 39 money received from the state, we get a part-time energy manager for 4 years. We're currently in year 2 of that, having that person on board. And every year they come to an annual energy audit of the district, and this is kind of a summary of the one we got recently. So tonight we're going to talk about the project we have done on Prop 39, and talk about our energy use and some of the results that we have and what we want to do next step-wise. Good? Okay. So the measures that we done, we did a exterior lighting retrofit at Cuesta. We did a exterior and interior lighting retrofit at Wickland. We replaced all the thermostats at Wickland and Bethany. We did an exterior lighting and interior lighting at Bethany, and Lambertville got new HVAC units. They got new thermostats, and they got lighting as well. So most of the projects were completed in October of 2016. A result savings, net savings of about a little over almost $22,000 for the district because of the projects in the first year. If you notice in the lower right box, Cuesta is the only school to increase in usage since the completion of the projects. Lambertville, it decreased in cost, but not in usage, just because Lambertville is the only school in the district that uses PG&E.
Excuse me, I think you may have misspoke.
Did I misspoke?
They reduced usage, but the cost went up because it's PG&E. Is that correct?
Yes, sorry. If I said that wrong, I'm sorry. The usage went down, the cost went up because PG&E is the provider. And I imagine with the fires, it might go up even more. So with the lawsuits and stuff. So, Cuesta is our problem child. It's problem school. 2016 was the lowest energy use in the district, and it currently stands as the highest energy consumer in the district. It's increased 136% over that 2-year span. If you look at the chart in the middle, it talks about energy use per square foot. And right now, Bethany is our most energy efficient school. And Altamont, the high school, and this building did not receive any Prop 39 upgrades, any projects. And so they currently have the highest exception of Cuesta. So of the schools that got Prop 39 work, Cuesta is the highest energy usage. So our bills get loaded into a software program, and it takes weather into account. So if you look at the data from the number of hot days decrease, yet the energy usage at Cuesta increase. And the same is the case for winter. The number of cold days decreased, the amount of energy used during the winter at Cuesta increased. It should have been the opposite way, or accordingly. It should have dropped accordingly, and it almost went opposite direction. So that's what that first box is trying to communicate. The bar on the left shows the energy use over the last year or so at Cuesta. Steps that we have done, we've done a site walk. We reviewed all the utility data, and between us and our HVAC contractor, we're trying to resolve some of the issues. Our conclusion is that the increase at Cuesta is due to the energy management system, building management system, HVAC system. So we're looking at replacing those controls with yes.
Am I reading this chart right, that the usage in June and July was higher than May?
Yes, that's what it looks like.
And were we using the classrooms and the site?
No.
Is there a explanation or a theory for why that would be?
It all ties back for me for the energy management system. I don't want to say it's a train out of control, but it's not running efficiently. And it has been so configured over the years and so fine-tuned that the individual people have gone through and tried to make it for each particular teacher their own individual. Well, you like it at 70. Oh, Thor likes it 72, and this 68. It's been so manipulated over the years that it's really not. It's out of control, and we can't access it. The only way to access it is go to the site and plug into the building. We can't access it remotely like the other sites we have it at. It's not a great system, and it's not configured well. It's not operating efficiently at the moment.
So
So-
were we air conditioning empty classrooms all summer?
I would say that it was running during the summer, yes. Based upon what that data shows, yes.
So in terms of actual dollars, and realize I haven't done an actual analysis, but I do look at the what do you call them? I call them disbursements, but you call them something else.
The warrants?
Warrants, that's it. Yeah, sorry. My governmental fund accounting was 30 years ago. But when I look at the warrants, it's like 8,000 or 9,000 a month more than the other sites. I mean, it and I look at it. So let's say it's 10 because my brain can handle 10,000 a month. Even if we do something superhuman and do internet-based thermostats, right? And let's say it costs $100,000 to retrofit. That's a payback period of less than a year. Less than a year. So I don't want to be sitting here a year from now discussing what we might possibly do, because unless we're talking more than $100,000, it pays for itself. I mean, there's something wrong at Cuesta. It's obvious. We all know it. But the magnitude, at least from what I'm seeing, and I haven't done an analysis, so if I'm wrong and I just look at the wrong months, please correct me. But it seems like it has such a magnitude that even if the solution was pretty significantly expensive, it's still worth it.
I mean, I agree with you. So, and we won't be sitting here in a year having the same conversation. So we're going to get under control, and we're going to do some work over the break, and we'll try and get this work done as fast as possible without interrupting instruction. So that's our plan.
Okay.
So my recommendation is the first step is to get the HVAC under control, and then see what that does to the bills, and then we may have to start looking at interior lighting and some other big projects that may need to be done. But to me, the first lowest hanging fruit, so to speak, is that energy management system.
The fact that you've shown that Cuesta was efficient and then something happened, that pretty much eliminates all of the normal construction defect. They didn't put insulation in the walls.
I know we talked about, a duct came off in the attic and that kind of stuff, but it doesn't
that
really
doesn't ring true.
We're way beyond that, I believe.
With the way the data is. Yeah. So I think you're right. To me, your point that the obvious answer is that the thermostats or the system controls are out of whack is.
And then after that, your biggest ticket would be your interior lighting in your classroom. Those are your two biggest energy uses victims right there. So,
but would the lights explain an increase? Because to me,
they're the same lights.
The same lights, so they wouldn't explain an increase. It's so to me, when you said thermostatic controls, I may be using the wrong word.
So
that's obviously the first thing to look at.
Okay. The current cost of electricity per site is in that upper chart. As you can see, they're all 12, 13, 16. And you see Lawrenceville at the bottom. It's PG&E. That's 28 cents a kilowatt hour.
I believe I asked this question previously, but We have looked into the different rate structures that PG&E offers to make sure that Lammersville is on the most cost-effective rate structure that for,
The energy manager examined all the bills and make sure we're on the best rate possible for every school. And then, that's pretty much it for that slide. Any questions on that one? No, okay. So this just sums up what we've done in conjunction with our energy manager and HVAC contractor. There's answer to your first one there, lowest energy rate, not being overcharged. And it did energy assessment. We put new thermostats in those schools I mentioned, and I just went through and updated all the thermostats this week to make sure they have the correct holiday schedule coming up, so they won't be running over the next 2 weeks. I ran the holiday schedule all the way out through the beginning of August, so on the new calendar, whenever that comes out for next year, I can go through and program next year's calendar in. And then we're looking at utility data to determine opportunity for reduction. And then still monitor the bills. And then there's training available. And we're, again, talking about those HVAC controls at Cuesta. And that may be the way to go for us. And then if the district is interested, we've kicked around the idea of being an Energy Star district and getting our schools Energy Star certified. If you want to go down that road, that's certainly something we could do. I think Cuesta right now won't qualify, but the rest of them would. I've done it in previous districts. You just submit your data, number of computers, number of employees, a lot of stuff you have to submit. And if you qualify, you get a plaque for put outside the office to hang up. So it just shows the community that we're being smart and we're being good stewards of the finances in the school. So definitely willing to do that. That's the direction I'm given. I think that's it. So happy to answer any more questions.
thank you. Questions or
No.
comments?
If I could make a comment,
Certainly.
the plan for Cuesta and replacing thermostats. The other thing that's going to save us is man hours, because right now we have to send an individual in to see every single thermostat if we want to change everything across the board at Cuesta. So his plan is if we change over to the system that we have at the other schools, he can do it remotely, and then we don't lose the manpower.
But my understanding was that we looked at upgrading it and the wiring is not supportive.
That's correct.
And
yeah.
I'm like, even if, I mean, even and granted, I'm just throwing numbers out there, but I understand the solution might be costly, but not solving, so basically I'm just saying, hey,
Let's just get it fixed.
well, I mean, obviously if you say, well, it's $3 million, well, that would be different, but,
No.
like,
Yeah.
I don't want you and your team worried about, oh my gosh, this solution is like $28,000 and this other solution that's better is like, $38,000. It's like the money that we're talking about here is big enough that we understand the wiring isn't supportive. So is there a solution that we can go get because it's money well spent?
You hear that, Albino?
So if I may comment on that as well, Jimmy and I have had conversations about that. We think that we can do part of the work in-house with the team that we now have, our expanded team. I think we've talked about doing part of the work in-house that will obviously save us money and time, because right now getting a contractor out, as you all know, is exceedingly challenging even to get somebody out to do the work, let alone how much they're charging us.
Yeah, you're going to pay significant mobilization costs.
Right.
Because essentially for them, it's the opportunity cost of working on a small job versus working on a big job.
Exactly. So we've been talking about that. Jimmy has some great ideas. So I think we have a plan in place so we can help Quest out quite a bit. So the key is doing it when they're not kids in the class. That's our real challenge right now. So
Cool.
thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Is it an agenda item?
It's agenda.
Item B, the 2018-2019 Facilities Use Handbook Update. Theater use. Staff report?
So at our last meeting, and if you're up on the Diaz, you have a pink tab that you can go to. That'll take you right to the handout for this item. Last time we were, the last meeting that we had a first draft of the high school theater rules, fee schedule, procedures, that would drop right into the facilities use handbook. There have been a couple of additions that I can go through for you, but if you would like to take a moment to look at that document. I did add no permanent alterations may be made anywhere in the theater. It's common sense, but common sense is not always common practice, so I put it in there. No pins or nails allowed in the curtains, walls, or flooring. I added that. No equipment attached to the floors or walls. I believe somebody brought that up at the last meeting, so I added that in there. And then no tape. We've had a bad tape experience recently, so I put in no tape except the blue or green painter's tape will be used on the stage floor. No duct tape, no other types of tape, because the blue and green painter's tape is removed and comes up easily and doesn't remove any material with it. I also added I think somebody talked about at the last meeting about supervising underaged individuals at events. I put in there for those that use our facilities, there must be an adult if there are participants under 18 years of age in every room being used, so that we are covered and there's an adult always monitoring and overseeing children that are under 18 years of age. So that's a summary of the items that I added since our last review of this material.
Well, it's to your point of it's common sense, but there must be an appropriate amount of adult supervision. I mean, I don't know that it's necessary, because when you say that, it's common sense, but then again, common
Well,
sense ain't all that common, right?
Guessing that refers to an adult per room.
Correct.
Well, I'm looking at, like, if there's, although I don't know that there would ever be a bunch of children in the theater, but one adult is not enough to supervise a full theater of little kids. It's just not.
Right. And in the event that there is a production, our manager, our theater manager, will have the opportunity to meet with and supervise, because they're required to be there. So we'll have another set of eyes. I just want to make sure I formalized it and put it down in writing that you have to have adults monitoring kids.
No, I agree. Otherwise, you'll have parent drop-off.
And
Right.
we could even add some language in here, unless I'm just not seeing it, that says these are minimum requirements. More stringent requirements may be required depending on the
Nature. and
event, the nature of the
circumstances.
event proposed, or something like that.
Yeah, so the language I put in, if the user has youth participants under 18 years of age, there must be adult supervision in all rooms at all times. We could add a numeric value to that.
Or
I mean,
Or we could just put that all these rules are minimum requirements, and that additional requirements may be imposed
He's
depending
saying
on the
leave yourself-
nature,
Sorry.
the nature of the event.
okay, like the theater manager may add other,
Right. The
okay.
theater manager may
themselves
say,
an out.
I
"You're-
gotcha.
You're proposing to have 500 kindergartners in here watching a play. You need to have 10 adults supervising 500 kindergartners," and I
My
don't
money's
think,
on the 50 kindergartners. I
That
know,
way-
but
that
that's
way we
50
don't have to-
at 10. That's 50 per adult. My money's on the 50 kindergartners. They're gonna.
but that way we don't have to try to make a rule for eventuality.
Right. And I think it's not bad to leave your team an out if they look down the barrel of a situation and want to say, well, if you're going to do that, then we need this.
I'll add some language and bring it back. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments, or suggestions to do with the theater use part of the facilities handbook?
And then from you, sir. No comments from me.
No?
Nope.
Good?
All right, thank you. Moving on to the next item, same-day booking of facilities.
So, sorry, I cut you off there.
I was just saying staff report, and you were beginning your staff report, which is fine.
So when items come forward, when it comes to the reservation and the use of our fields and our facilities, that has not only come from users of the facilities, but it's come from people at this table as well. And there are some concerns with the ability of our local youth organizations, our local sports organizations, our local teams, et cetera, who use our facilities and who have used our facilities historically on an ongoing basis and in good standing, meaning that they have paid their fees, they have left the facilities appropriately clean and used them appropriately. The concern has come forward that the way that we and that our handbook, facilities handbook, reads when it comes to renting facilities, some of the groups that have been here historically for some time may get X'd out or not have the opportunity to use a facility with the language that we currently have in the handbook. And what I mean by that is if there is a tie or if there's two groups that want to use a facility at the same time, what our handbook states is that the organization with the oldest established taxed ID exempt status would win out. Now, the problem with that is, you know, we have hundreds of people moving into our neighborhoods on a yearly basis, right? So we may have somebody that has a tax ID from 1995 move in, and then all of a sudden they trump everyone that's been here for the last 10 years renting facilities, and that really is not a fair process. So some of the ideas that I have been given is provide seniority. There's a seniority basis. Those that are in good standing, that have been using the facilities ongoing for years and are good partners for us, we give them a standing that's a little, has more options than people that just come in anew. So for example, if you have a soccer team that's been using Bethany Field for 10 years and they go to renew and they tie with another organization that just came in this last year that may have moved here from San Jose or Morgan Hill or wherever, but the other group has an ID number that is older, they would get to use the field like that, whereas our people, whereas the people that have been here for 10 years using the facility get X'd out, and that's not fair in most people's eyes.
The intent of the language, and in retrospect, the verbiage does not support the intent. The intent was to do precisely what you're talking about, is to give preferential treatment to the organizations that had been serving the children of our community for the longest period of time. Now, you know, one that's been here 10 years versus one that's been here 9.5 years, well, you know, gee, that, you know, but obviously, I think we need to propose a change quickly. Now that we realize, and man, I hope that long-standing organizations in our community have not faced this problem habitually, because had I known about it, or Pombo known about it, I can almost promise that that's not the intent that the board was going for.
I think the issue has popped up. I think something has occurred. I think we have a short-term solution and a long-term solution for that situation. One of the things that we talked about, Jimmy and I were talking about this the other day, and other municipalities and other locales that have multiple fields, what they do is they bring groups together and they carve out the field use. And the people that have been using the fields, they come to an agreement, I'm going to use this field during this season, use this field during this season. I think we could do that with the people that have been using our facilities. Kind of an initial meeting, an initial get-together to figure out field use, right? And then as we move forward, the other thing we talked about was, okay, now that we have established those groups and carved out historically what they use and when, now when it's time for our facilities to open for rental, we would do what is done in other locales for like sports, for tickets. Like if you belong to a bank, you get to buy tickets 2 days early. We can open the window a couple days early for all the people that are in good standing and have historical record with us, allow them to enroll, and then open our facilities use like we normally do for all new parties to come in and rent what's left, the facilities that are left. That would make it more, I think it makes it more fair for the people that have been here and in good standing, so that they have an opportunity to use the facilities year after year. Now, if they can't get their paperwork done and get things together in that 48 hours, well, they are out of luck. They've lost their place in line. They have to reserve after the deadline like everybody else. But
After the early enrollment period.
yeah, you could call it early enrollment, whatever you want to call it.
Early reservation period.
But it's deference for those that have been here in good standing. And that way you don't have the issue with new groups coming in, which as we get new people in here, there's going to be more and more demand for our facilities, just like everything else we're doing. More schools, more fields, there's going to be more demand. And so that's kind of what we've worked through, what our idea is to kind of remedy. I also have some language, if I could read that real quick, how it would change perhaps in the facilities handbook. You have a copy right behind the theater document. And it previously...
Because behind theater use was same-day booking of facilities.
Correct.
And what we're talking about doesn't feel like same-day booking of
If two organizations want to book at the same time.
Oh, booking. Oh, I thought you were saying, I want to use the facility today. That's what I got from the agenda.
Yeah,
okay,
okay.
all right. I'm
yeah,
with you.
yeah.
I'm finally with you now.
Yeah, the language was, maybe I should have changed the language. So if I could, I would like to read the original language first, and then I'll read you the language that I am proposing. If two organizations submit applications at the same time for the same dates for the same location, priority will go to the organization with the oldest established tax-exempt status. Previous language. Now, what I am proposing is, if two organizations submit applications at the same time for the same dates for the same location, priority will go to the organization that is in good standing with the most senior use of the requested field or facility.
So what we're basically looking at is the ability for an organization to roll over their use of the field from one year to the next, assuming they do it in a timely manner, which would be during that 48-hour window.
If they get their paperwork in that 48-hour period, it's a done deal. I say we have that initial meeting where we carve up where everybody's been so we get the history right, so there's no hurt feelings or we miss anybody. But after that, I think we can track it fairly easily after that.
I like the language that you put, the proposed new language. I think it works. But would you put somewhere in the facilities use agreement where we would open it, that booking period up to 2 days or 48 hours sooner?
It would go on what's our form called that we use? It would go on the form that they fill out, and they would be notified by facilities, just like they are now. They're notified now by email.
Okay.
Thank you, civic permits, yeah.
I will give you a chance, Andy, as soon as I want to let the committee discuss it, and then if you have anything to add or whatever.
I'm good.
Good? Dr. Sue,
Andy Shu, longtime resident, of course. The question, this item, I of course have some interest. With the thing that you said though, there can't be a tie if two people are submitting civic permits. The thing, I have a different proposal, slightly different proposal, but there's no tie because two people are clicking a button, one person's gonna get through earlier. So there's no, if you just use civic permits, whoever gets in first gets the reservation. So the way the CSC did this 10 years ago when we decided that we have to have some sort of priority system is we allowed people to submit, like your 48 hours, we give them a month because 48 hours is, what if you're busy those 2 days? We give them a month and we collect all the applications for that month for long-standing, and then we look at the people who have used the field previously get priority. So if we're at Bethany, we get priority at Bethany. Somebody else is at Cuesta, they get, but even if I'm an older organization, I don't get to bump Cuesta, so you get the fields that you've been using, that's your top priority. The rest open up. So that way, because if we have to submit it online, there's never gonna be a tie.
I did want to mention when there isn't, and unless the software has changed, there's a setting that can be changed where you can, because we inadvertently had it on and people overlapped at one particular school. So there is a
Right.
setting in the software that will allow multiple people to enter application for the same day,
Yeah, that's-
same time, and not be approved. You can then review them. This way it would avoid all the paperwork. This is why we purchased the software, to
Okay,
eliminate
so
the paperwork.
we-
So there's a feature on our end that we can flip the switch, yes, please allow multiple people for the same day, same time, and then we can review.
understanding it correctly, the priority would be given basically for what you've done in the past.
Yeah, if you've been
So-
using yeah.
In other words, the oldest organization in town who had been renting our facilities for the longest couldn't come in and say, you know what, I just want all of them.
Yeah, that prevents that.
That doesn't work.
So, but I'm not sure exactly what Alvina, so the system allows two people to reserve a
You
field.
can, it's a feature, right now I believe it's turned off.
Okay, so
but
when you
there's a
turn
way
on,
our side for a particular time to allow.
three groups want the same field, and you don't approve any of them, but then you look at a case-by-case basis.
Yes.
And use this priority system that you set up, the one who was there that had it last year gets it again. As long as there's that system, because again, we're just trying to eliminate the uncertainty. I have to sign up kids from January through May, and I won't know if I have a field or not until May. So,
This system should help you
yeah.
with that.
Yeah, that's all we're looking for, to get rid of that uncertainty, because what would I do with all those kids without a field?
Sure, how do you advertise? How do you say what's
Exactly.
gonna happen? And yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So as long as we know that when whether it's a 48-hour or a week or whatever period you guys choose, if we get the application in,
We usually have windows that we make available for staff to go ahead and put in all your
but
events.
so your system though doesn't even require the 48 hours.
I'm not sure how they're handling that piece.
The 48 hours piece is something that Jimmy and I came up with as a fair system to carve out fields
For the people
for
that
the
have
people
been here.
that have a history of using said fields, right?
Our
The way
system
it'll
kinda
work is
addresses
that
too.
you have been approved for this school on these days at these times. You have 48 hours to get your paperwork in, or it'll open up to somebody else, whatever time we set it for. Because what we do not want to do is, I don't want to put your paperwork in for you as your organization, your insurance. That's on the end user to do that.
Right.
So whatever, if it's 2 days, 5 days, whatever it is, you have till this day to get your paperwork in. Right?
And I don't know that it wouldn't be a bad idea to, instead of 48 hours, to make it a week
Yeah.
or whatever, because it doesn't really matter.
we say
You
is
can
fine.
do, yeah, whatever. That was just an example.
But with our system though, you don't even have to do, let's say it opens May 1st. But then you still, if somebody reserves it on May 1st and somebody goes in May 7th, you may have approved May 1st already but
But what this would be would be opening it up to the existing group
yeah, I like
a week before May 1st.
that better.
So would the
Or
civic
whatever the
permit
time period.
software, you switch off that button so that people can overlap their reservation.
During that
But
time
then
window.
when the general public is allowed to go in, you switch that piece off. So
Correct.
now there can't be overlap of reservations?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's where I was going and saying, gee, we can have it be longer than 40. I definitely want the button switched back. But
Right,
if
that'd
we
be a
had
lot of work
period
for
of,
them.
right, if we had a period of X amount of time, 3 weeks or
Yeah, whatever.
2 weeks, a month, whatever it is, where it's open, we don't even have to limit it so that new organizations can't, right?
Right,
It's-
any organizations can
But
apply
we are
that.
not going to approve or deny during this period of time. And we're going to take all the reservations during this period of time, and then we're going to sift through them. You know, at the end of this 3 weeks, we're going to sift through them, and we're going to approve Mountain House flag football for its existing stuff, and we're going to turn that on so that after that period of time, you don't have the situation where you've got to sift through after that period of time.
But I think to me, it would be much less work for staff if we only open up whatever period beforehand that we decide, whatever length of time is decided, only to returning users, because it makes the sifting that much less.
I agree.
Do we have the ability
Totally
to
agree.
filter who can?
That I don't know unless we notify those existing users that the window's open for them during this time.
But that's all we need to do. All we need to do
We
is
can do them by
communicate
tiers,
with-
I believe.
We can
right?
even,
I think we did that your first year here. We did them by tiers. I think tier 2 was given first, well, obviously tier 1, the tier 2s were given priority.
If we're communicating with the groups, all we have to do is tell the groups that have the historical record, for you, civic permits opens on this date. Then for everyone else, we advertise civic permits opens for you on these dates. And that's when they sign up. And that way, staff isn't sifting through everybody's stuff and figuring out priority. They're still doing their paperwork the same way they always do their paperwork. It's just their timing and their priority changes.
Do we have an estimate about how many groups would fall into that pre-registration category? Is it like less than 10 or?
Less than 10.
Okay, so it's
Probably
not a
between like 8 and
huge.
10, somewhere
Okay,
like that.
okay.
It's not a ton.
That's why I suggested getting them together and having a discussion about time and place and where, and establishing it from on the front end, and then telling them, hey, this is when we're going to open, this is when we need your paperwork, this is when it has to be turned in by, and then that way there's no questions about the process. They can speak face to face, right?
Well,
Coordinating a face-to-face.
we all have all the organizations that have been around, we have all reserved certain fields for the last 5, 6, 10 years. So I think everybody, and it's in the system what we use. So I don't know that we need to get together to say we have those fields. It's
Don't wanna get
already.
together.
We'll get together,
You don't
but
want to get together, huh?
Getting 10 groups together at the same point in
it's not, yeah, that's not that
time
easy.
is going to be a logistical challenge.
but it does present an opportunity to explain to the existing groups what the new plan is and how it works and how they access it and those sorts of things.
Yeah, or you could, I mean, as long as, I mean, for us, as long as there's priority for the people who are already there, you know, like we've used it for the last 10 years, we should have the first.
Right, but
Yeah.
I think the other thing that needs to happen is we need to explain to those individuals what good standing means.
Yeah.
And it says in here in good standing, and we have an opinion of what good standing is. I think it means people that pay their bills on time, people that don't trash our facilities.
Pick up their trash after themselves.
Right, and that type of stuff. And if we have groups that are repeatedly doing that, we want to remedy that.
Well, then, yeah,
And
then
another
they're not good standing.
possibility of not being in good standing might be groups that try to reserve everything and then figure out, oh, well, we don't need that and we don't need
Oh, they
that,
cancel a bunch?
and we don't need that,
That's happened.
you know, because some just shotgun and then say, well, we're going to cancel this one and cancel this one and cancel this one. And that makes too much work for
Right.
staff to try to figure that kind of stuff out.
Just one other.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing about getting the paperwork in is this has happened every single year because I've been doing this. Our insurance goes from July 1st to June 30th. And when we make the reservation in May, well, I still have the old insurance. They're asking for the new insurance. In the past, is it ARIA or whoever just understood that I can't get the insurance paper in because I'm not even allowed to renew, but that leaves an opening on the civic permits. But they always just said, okay, we'll take care of it. Just so that, you know, that part, I won't be able to close the loop until the period ends. So there's the little, you know,
That should be easy enough to enter the current information in with the understanding that the new information will be.
pending,
entered
yeah,
as
yeah. So
soon as
you have the reservation pending you getting the, yeah, not that you lose it because you couldn't get the reserve, yeah, insurance in.
That's the least of my worries.
Yeah, I mean, just a little, other little details, but yeah, like you said, it doesn't affect that many organizations and, yeah, we just
And
want
I
to,
think it's a good thing now to get something in place before we have 40 organizations.
Right.
Or 50 or 70 or 100 to deal with in sometime in the future.
and it'll continue to grow.
Yep.
So, thank you for your time and,
you.
hope to continue to provide youth sports to Dave's kids and Colin's kids were all in the organization. Of course, Lisa's kids were.
Thank you for all you do.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. Have a good night.
You too,
you.
thank you. All right, take care. Item C, use of Mountain House High School facilities during home football games.
Can we go back to the
Certainly.
previous so I can get some clarity on
Yes.
actions I need to take? Yes. So does the group agree that we want to change the timing of civic permits opening for those groups that are, have historical use of our fields? 5 days, I think, is what everybody agreed on, 5 days prior to the deadline, okay? Did you guys agree that we want to set up a meeting? And I kind of indicated why I would like to start with a meeting, at least with those senior groups. And even if we have to do it piecemeal, I think it's important to talk face to face and set expectations and everybody understands each other. Is everybody good with that process?
Yep.
Okay.
If you're willing to take it on.
Well, I think Jimmy's happy to do.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Everybody else step back, Jimmy.
Okay, so we will make.
Or
the
is just going to
changes.
stand behind me and look menacing. I'm just going to run the meeting and he's just stand there.
I'm gonna wear a security shirt, just stand behind Jimmy. So we will work on that and we'll report back at the next facilities meeting, progress. Does that sound good? Okay,
Sounds good,
Thank you.
okay, all right. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Sue.
Moving on to use of Mountain House High School facilities during home football. games. Staff report?
I waited that time. So I'd like to point to the audience, Athena Duran is here, who is in support of this item. If you have any questions or need clarification, that's why she is here. But in a nutshell, Friday night games at the high school, we have huge crowds. We have a ton of kids there, and the facility is packed with cars, kids, parents, community members. And this last school year in the fall, we had rental of the gym on the same night as the football game. It caused a lot of stress, not only security-wise, but for our custodians and for everybody that's running the school. You know, with our administrators there, with our SRO there, and our campus security. At one point, the staff came to me, the high school administrative staff came and said, hey, this is getting really crowded and it's feeling unsafe. And it's feeling like we can't serve every group because, well, as you know, when people use facilities, custodians get pulled different directions. They need to be at the football field. They need to be in the locker room, opening the locker room door, getting the ice door open, whatever the case may be. And staff is really feeling thin and feeling that it's too much. So what I have been asked to request from this group is that we, on home football game nights, we do not rent either gym. Those gyms stay open and there are no outside groups in those gyms. Now, if we have a dance team that wants to go in there from our school, we don't think that's a problem because they always have the teacher with them and they don't need all that extra support and all that extra supervision as outside groups need.
Oh, so the request is just that we don't rent to outside entities
On Friday
on
night,
Friday night football night.
home Friday night games.
You had me at hello. But,
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that.
Wait, get to the microphone.
Friday night basketball games as well. Just any of those big sporting events that, as you know, you were saying, that spreads the staff really, really thin. And worry of mixing, different groups and things like that. When it's our own school event, we plan for that ahead of time and have everything all coordinated and laid out. But we noticed during football season that, outside basketball teams would need a bunch of stuff, and it would pull all of us back and forth between events.
And that's about 4 to 5, depending on the season, nights in the fall that we would not be allowing outside use of those facilities, which I think is realistic. I think most schools probably do that, looking back on my time as a principal and working with other high schools. So
Yeah. I wouldn't know. Our football stadium was like 3 miles away from the high school. So
Well, when I was in high school, everybody in town was at the football game, so there was nobody left.
to do anything else, yeah, that's right. No, that's true for us too. With the last Parsonian to leave to go to the football game, please turn out the lights.
there you go.
I don't have any problem with that, and I hope that in the future it's 6 or 8 or 10 football games in the fall that, at home, that we have to not allow outside rental for.
Okay. All right.
And thank you for coming and bringing this to our attention.
Absolutely.
I have one more question of the group. I don't know that I need to formalize this in our facilities handbook, or if we can just X that out of our facilities software and just not allow rentals.
I think we can just,
I think we treat it the same as it's being used by. The thing is, the high school is being used by the school,
The school. Yeah, okay.
and the school support services.
Perfect. They'll really appreciate that. Okay. All right, go.
thank you. Item D, district radios, additional repeater at the district office status. Staff report?
You paused that time, trying to set me up. So, good news, and I have not so good news. The repeater is up on the building. It came and installed, and it works great with almost all of our schools, with the exception of Hanson. We can't get Hanson to work with our common radio channel that we're using as the emergency channel for all the K-8s and high schools. Hanson's not working. So Golden State, that's who it is, right? Golden State Communications, they're trying to work on a solve for us to make that work. They have been here a couple of times and not been able to solve that problem. So right now, when we are communicating with Hanson, like they had a drill this week, a bomb threat drill. They had to call in, and when they started the drill, and they called in when they finished the drill. Common practice with the drills at the school sites is they communicate with the radio, the district radio. 2 things: 1, we know they did the drill. 2, we know that the interoperability of the radios is working. So Hanson is the only one left that is not functioning properly, and we are still working on it.
And do we think it's a hardware issue? In other words, that something in the radios is not compatible with the system, or?
They're all new radios, so they should all work with the current system.
Is Golden State the entity that sold us the radio?
Yes, yeah, and they're working on it. They've done a really good job compared to our previous vendor.
But
So
they are on the hook to make sure Hanson.
they are on the hook.
They're
to
not
make sure.
leaving until Hanson.
They are, no,
No, yeah.
no. And the radios work outside.
They don't work in the building. If you step outside, they work. So
Leaving me. Oh, they work inside the building.
they
but
do
when-
not work inside the building.
Oh, okay.
If you step outside in the quad, they work.
Yeah.
So
I should know the answer to this, but I don't. Is that building framed in steel?
yes,
That sounds like
it could interfere with the radio signal.
There-
It could
there
be
may
the
have to
distance
be-
between here and Hanson's the furthest
it
school
may
to
have
the
to install
west.
some micro cells or something inside the buildings to.
But Golden State had the opportunity to ask us about construction style, the assemblages of the schools and all that, and they sold us something and said it would work, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And they will stay on it until it's fixed.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And to be honest, Cordis is opening soon, which will be another one. So at some point, we may have to consider the south at the south end. Whoever's southernmost we may need another repeater, right? Because, you know, we're very central where the repeater is on our roof for Cuesta all the way around to Bethany. They get pretty far south. So maybe that's something we're going to have to consider down the road.
Maybe putting a repeater at
Plus,
the high school.
and then we go past Cordis all the way out to
Right.
AB.
Understood.
We may have to, I don't know.
Item E, update baseball fields repair at Mountain House High School. Staff report.
You'll recall I came to this group to request monies to repair damage that the high school baseball field had endured over the last 3 years. The work is going on now. I'll defer to Jimmy. He's been out there and knows the lingo much better than I do.
So if you've been by, you've seen all the work that's been done. The infield's been torn out. The sod's going in tomorrow. We went out about 30 feet into the outfield grass, and then the skirt area, apron they call them, I call them skirt, between the baseline and the dugout, that's going in tomorrow. Wrap around home plate, that's all going in tomorrow, big rolls. And then they're going to lay the infield, which is going to be hybrid Bermuda, similar to a putting green. They can mow real tight. That's going to go in next week. But the big areas are getting done tomorrow. And the whole project we wrapped up sometime next week. That's where we're at.
Questions?
Sounds good.
So they redid the pitcher's mound, they redid the batter's boxes, they regraded everything. They're bringing that one more load of clay to come in. When the new sod comes in, they'll bring that clay right up to it for the lip and stuff. That's basically where we're at. So it looks nice. If you've been out there, driven by and seen it, I think it'd be much better for the high school team to play, and much better for the infielders, for sure.
Yeah.
So-
Safer lip. Yeah.
And we're going to keep the voles out of the new grass.
Well, if they make errors, they can't blame the field maintenance, so they can't really.
All right, thank you. Item 6, action item, consider use of facilities fees for the stage side curtains at Cuesta. Staff report?
So I've received a request from Cuesta School. They have a front curtain. They're asking for wing curtains so that when they do their plays which they do a great deal of apparently at Cuesta, that they have the ability to run the players in and off and hidden behind the wing curtains. The cost is $8,150. Outside organizations, I think, would also use this facility, so I think it's an appropriate use of the facility fees. But I received this request this last month and told them I'd bring it forward.
So do the other elementary schools have wing curtains?
Wickland does.
I think Wickland does.
Yes.
And if you're doing a production, you
Yeah,
would need those.
Yeah,
I think it's some do and some do not.
I'm thinking they're knowing what I mean. Yeah, let's face it. My kids are not in elementary school anymore, but when they were, having the wing at Wickland, having the wings was part of the production. So not only should I'm supportive of this for Cuesta, but I would like to know if we need to do something like that to the other elementary schools to make them as functional.
What was the cost? Was it 8,000 or 80,000? I'm sorry.
8,150.
And that's for the track and the installation and everything, or
Complete installation of track and the wings. They also requested to paint the backdrop black, but I thought we could do that in-house, save some money. Our facilities people can paint the sides and the back black. That's not an issue.
Yeah, we just did Lambertville, so
Can we let them tag it before we paint it black? No, I'm just kidding.
can.
It's a little art project.
So is the guidance I'm getting to double check other schools and see if other schools need it? Or do you want to approve this going forward and I'll double check other schools and maybe bring back
That's
the
what
next
I
meeting?
That was because we have a request from a principal, and I think it's a reasonable request, and it's a reasonable use of the fees. So I would say yes, but that just made me curious. Like, gee, should we look at the other elementaries?
I can do that.
Sounds good.
I will do that. Okay.
Thank you. Item 7, future agenda topics and meeting date. Staff report?
Well, we have a quote for the cricket pitch that has been requested by community members at Wickland, but the quote that I received was incomplete. There was information that was left out, and I'm not comfortable bringing a partial quote information to this group, so I'm going to go back again and see if I can get more information. So they're still on hold until I get more information. Fencing is an ongoing issue that we've talked about before. There's nothing new really on that. I would like to add one other item for the next meeting. We did a survey at the K-8 schools for a spring sport, to add a sport to what we currently do. I'd like to bring those results as well as a facilities purchase request related to that sport, because it is going to take some equipment for each school. So I'd like to add that to the next agenda as a future item.
What? I'm sorry,
We did a survey of the K-8 kids in 5th and 6th grade and 7th and 8th grade to see what kind of sport they would like to participate in spring if we provided a sport. The results were overwhelmingly soccer. I mean, overwhelmingly soccer. So during this next set of negotiations, I want to talk about stipends and add a spring sports stipend to the 5, 6, 7, 8 school group, and add a spring sport for next school year for kids to participate in. So we have more kids participating in more activities. And obviously with soccer, it's going to involve buying soccer posts and nets and markers at the corner and things like that. So I would like to bring that to the facilities group to at the next meeting.
My favorite sport, shin kicking, was not.
Yeah. Shin kicking was one of the
You did get
sports.
some
You got
votes,
some
right?
votes, you bet. Yep. Competitive. I'm sorry, it was competitive.
Competitive shin kicking.
And I apologize, I was still thinking about the fencing and remembering the comments that you'd made, and you'd moved on to it, and I was just lost, so I
Sorry.
apologize.
Fencing as the
And
next spring
this is-
sport.
This is not a spring sport. This is,
Fencing, yeah, I was thinking of
Oh,
fencing.
you were thinking of fencing, like
No,
Olay.
I was, as you talked about it, I was remembering a comment that you'd made that the gauge of wire used was brittle and it was breaking everywhere and it was,
Yeah.
yeah, and my brain was like back on that, and then you moved on to spring sport and I missed like the first half of what you said, and I apologize, it was my fault.
No worries, we're all tired.
would anyone on the committee like to suggest any future agenda topics?
Can I, I think it was May or sometime before the summer last year, we talked about the alcohol policy for rental fees, and we were waiting, I think, for some ASB or CSBA language to change. Do we have any update on that? Okay, is that something we can address at the next meeting, Mr. President?
That the policy has been adopted by the board.
Oh, okay, okay.
I can bring the policy and review it with this group if that's what you would like, with the policy, the new language, if you'd like.
I can go back and look at board meetings if it was
Okay.
adopted at a board meeting. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Anything further? Then I will call this meeting done at 7:37. Thank you.
Sir?